10 things you should do with your new Apple Vision Pro. This is Vision Pro Focus on MacVoices. Welcome to Vision Pro Focus. This is a group effort between the Vision Profiles podcast and MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner. I have with me Eric Bolden. Eric, good to see you.
Good morning.
And Marty Gensius is with us as well. Marty, good to see you.
Good to be here. This is always fun for me because it's not article, news story. It's like, let's talk about a topic.
Well, but you guys do such a great job on Vision Profiles of doing articles, apps, different things. The reason we started Vision Pro Focus, though, is to dig in a little bit deeper just to the overall user experience and trends and whatever you're seeing. This time, we're going to talk a little bit about, 10 things you should, 10 things you should do with your Vision Pro once you get it. Now, I know you two keep trying to talk me into getting one, and I keep inching closer, and then things happen and pull me back. But, I'm still intrigued by the whole thing, especially having done a demo at the Apple Store, and then also Marty sharing some of it at MacStock this year. So if and when I get a Vision Pro, or if and when any of the audience members get one for the holidays, what are some of the first things they should do?
Well, I think Eric and I have come up with a list of, we didn't consult on this, so it'll be interesting advice for both of us. But I'm gonna start off because your question kind of says, what is the thing that you should do? Well, you should get it set up properly. You should get the right light shield. You should get the right lenses if you need the right lenses, and you should take some time to get it set up properly. Because that's where a lot of users, they don't struggle, but their problems are often related to how they set it up and the light shield that they've done and the strap that they're using in terms of weight. So outside of the things that you do, the thing that you need to do is really spend some time making sure it's comfortable and it's set up. Eric, would you agree?
Yes. And oddly enough, the first item I had was similar. Make sure you have lots of light, because during the setup, the camera scans your hands, and as you're trying to learn how to use the controls, the response time is better with lots of light. Once you're used to them, you can get it to work in virtually no light. But when you're first setting it up and you're getting your whole profile and everything all set up, it's much better to have a lot of light. It just makes it easier.
So, Eric, elaborate on that for just a second. So I'm envisioning me putting this thing on, and you're saying I need lots of light in the room as part of the setup process?
Yeah. Okay. Well, because if you picture, most people order it and it either gets delivered. For us, it's like late afternoon, or you drive to an Apple store, you pick it up, you come home and you say, oh, great, I want to set it up, and it's dark outside and your room may or may not have all the lights turned on. If you have like operating room light conditions when you first set it up, everything later seems to go better. Or, just be in a room where you can turn on some overhead lights. For some people, that's the kitchen. Other people, they've got, a lamp in the living room or overhead lights. Turn everything on so you have lots of light when you initially set it up.
That both of those together are such a great tip, because we all do it. We get a new machine, we get a new device, we get a new toy, we get, something. And the first thing you want to do is come in and play with it the way you think it should work. And don't take that little extra time that would either solve problems or just enhance or improve the experience, your first experiences with it. So that's a great way to start.
Along with that, I would say, accept the fact that you and everybody else will not be satisfied with your persona. My wife hates it because she says it's like I died 10 years prior. And it's like a coffin shot of me. But the funny thing is you get used to it. And when you're in the environment with other people, the personas become less important than your initial look at it. So again, that's all part of the setup. You need plenty of light to set up your persona, and you need to have it at the right height. The persona setup for me was a little tricky to get it done, and that's not why I'm going back to try and perfect mine now that I've got it done. But yeah, the whole setup the whole setup is really important to have the best user experience.
Now, to be clear, the persona is the thing that is showing on the screen on the screen to the outside world.
No, that's eyesight. What you're seeing in a persona is during the setup of the device, it asks you to create a persona, and that persona is you take the headset off, you put it in front of you, and it has to be in a well-lit room, and you do all sorts of sort of like face scan ways of that you do when you set up your face recognition for your phone. What you get then is a camera shot that has been put together of what your head is like, and it actually becomes it's movable. So as you turn your head, as you blink your eyes, as you smile, within the headset, the cameras recognize that and then projects that image. If you're in a room with other people, it projects that image out to other folks. So it's an integral part of the interaction with folks within the environment, but nobody is generally pleased with their persona.
If you think about it like having a FaceTime call, everybody's done that now, where you're sitting in there holding your phone and your face then is sent out to the other person, the other person's face is sent to you. So there's an issue if, you have a whole headset on your face. That's not what you want in a FaceTime call. And if you have, a phone out in front of your face, that, this isn't what you want. So what they do is they basically build a virtual you and have that be what gets sent out. And since there isn't really a way to kind of build your whole face from within the headset and remove the headset, you end up with a persona. It's a virtual you so that you can do FaceTime calls.
Got it.
But it's responsive. It's responsive. So when you blink your eyes, when you smile, when you laugh, all of that comes through this virtual.
So it's sort of like a deep fake head for your face. Is that may not be the most positive way to express it, but hopefully it'll convey the meaning. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. So I automatically come to think of it, though, that's kind of the way it is when I look in the mirror in the morning. I'm never happy with what I see. But anyway, so where do we go from here? That we're not going to be happy with the persona. What can we be happy about?
There's one. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric. You go ahead and take the first shot.
There's one more thing to think about, and that is if you go for a demo, they've kind of switched back and forth between that single loop headset or the dual loop headset. One or the other is likely to work for you. I tend to like the dual loop headset, but the important thing is the first impulse is to tightly strap yourself into this thing so that nothing moves. And I think there are a lot of people that end up experiencing face pain, either pressure up above or pressure underneath the eyes from the light shield. I find that if you use the dual loop band and basically treat it as a hat that you're gently setting on your head, kind of like a cheese head hat, like you see Wisconsin people wearing at games, just gently set it on your head so that it's almost too loose. In fact, occasionally, sometimes I'll get a message that says my eyes aren't close enough to the screen. Then I have absolutely no pressure below my eyes, no pressure above my eyes, and it can sit on my head for hours and hours and hours without noticing it. When I first started using it, I tightened everything down so nothing moved, and the amount of time I could wear it was pretty low. So think looser than what you might normally think. Because you're going for comfort. And if you can't adjust it so that you can wear it for longer than 10 minutes or longer than 30 minutes, then there's a good chance the light shield isn't quite right. And you can go to an Apple store and you can swap out the light shield for a different light shield that's a covered change. So it isn't always correct the first time. But if you can have everything loose, that seems to work in more cases. If you're going to let somebody else try out your device, having it a little bit looser leads to a better experience as well.
Got it. So does the looseness have, I know what you just said about the light shield, but that I would gather that taking that approach to it might change which light shield would fit you.
There is some wiggle room with all of the light shields, so there's hundreds of combinations. And if you get one that's pretty close, whether it's loose or tight, it should work in both cases, but one case will leave you somewhat uncomfortable after 30 minutes.
And so you have the strap across the top. Eric, do you have, Marty, do you have the strap across the top as well?
Well, as it turns out, Belkin just created a strap to go with the Solo Loop, the kind of expandable meshy thing. And I got one last week, and we'll talk more about it on our show. But it seems to have helped. And not that I really had a problem with it, but I constantly felt myself having to shift as the thing would slide, and the band across the top that Belkin provides keeps the shifting from occurring up and down with it. So you can go either way. Some people have no problem with it. I've always heard what Eric suggested. People will tighten it too tight, and what they say is tighten it so it's secure, and then back off a little bit. And with the Solo Loop band, you can loosen it, and then it, if it feels tight, then back it up, tighten it to where it's tight, and then turn it back a little bit so it's a little loose, and you'll have less head problems with it.
That works. That works. So all of this sounds a little bit like you're getting a new suit, or a new, I guess for guys, a suit, maybe for ladies, a dress, or a piece of clothing that you sort of have to make sure it's right, everything fits, and maybe even have it tailored a little bit. And by tailored, I mean getting the right light shield, getting an additional strap, or the right strap. Okay.
The light shields each light shield comes with two different kinds of cushions. So a thicker cushion and a thinner cushion. So you can swap out those cushions on the light shield, and that helps also with the availability of how tight it is or how easy it is. Eric's showing that they're magnetically attached. They just clip. Yeah.
Yep.
That's perfect. All right, so I think that gives us the first three, which all sound like they're in preparation for use, for you to get using this. Any more prep, or can we actually dig into the Vision Pro itself?
So getting the setup is really important. Let's get to the fun stuff, which is what you can actually do with it once you get it. And I'll start with the first. What was on the top of my list was immersive video. And Apple provides some really good immersive video. My favorite happens to be elephants. There's a bunch of other immersive video. There's like flyovers of Hawaii, and some of that gets to my vertigo. But the elephants, where you're in the middle of a camp that is basically an elephant rescue camp with people in Kenya who are feeding the elephants and taking care of the elephants. You can't get that experience in any other device. So that's why that's my number one. You gotta see what it can do in terms of spatial video. So my number one on the list is immersive video. And there are some documentary kinds of films, 3D video, 3D movies are great, but start with the stuff that's been shot in high resolution for the purpose of the Vision Pro.
Okay. Eric, would you agree with that as a number one?
Excellent choice. Just commenting more on that specific one, just being able to stand in place while something as large as an elephant flows right by you, it's something you can't simulate. And I mean, even if you went to where the elephants were, they wouldn't be as comfortable with you as they are with whoever was standing there. So you still wouldn't experience it the same way. So yeah, great choice.
The only thing it's lacking is the manure smell, to make it really seem real.
Thank you for sharing that.
But that's an important element. I mean, you don't really realize how much smell is a part of place. Think going to a beach with the scent of the ocean breeze, which could be fresh and nice, or it could be fish.
That's a really interesting point, and it speaks to the quality of the experience of the Vision Pro. That it's not a case of like putting a beach scene or an elephant scene up on your TV, and yeah, you're watching the elephants there. But with the Vision Pro, it's much more like you're actually there, and so the absence of sense, I might be a little maybe not disorienting, but just it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, the elephant passing you on the right on a regular screen, you're just seeing it and it's out of your view. You can turn your head and follow that elephant because it's been shot that way to be able to see it, which is a different experience, a really immersed experience.
Okay. So Marty did that one. Eric, your turn.
Well, okay. So I had elephant too, but I wanted to say first and foremost, this is a secure display, which is the easiest way to think about the Apple Vision Pro. So kind of what do I mean? If you think about it as a display, it will do everything that a normal display will do, but you then get additions. Marty mentioned it before in that you can view things that a single flat display doesn't let you view. So if you have a panoramic image, you can bring that up, surround yourself, put yourself in a cylinder of the panoramic image so you can look at the entire view as if you're standing in the spot where the image was generated originally. If you have spatial video, 3D video, like the elephants, you can see them come past you. You can watch a bee sit on one flower, fly towards you, go around, and then fly, and then set down on another flower that is bouncing up and down in the breeze and going sideways across. That looks very different from if you see it just in a regular 2D view without the depth, knowing kind of what's in front, what's behind. You don't have just focus telling you that. You can actually see it. Same with still images. Watching an image of like your favorite puppy that has the puppy in the room with the paw reaching out towards you is a totally different experience than just seeing a picture of a puppy with a paw lifted up. But you don't know that it's lifted up, reaching towards you to paw at you to be able to go outside or whatever, or get your attention. It's extra cueing. You can't get any other way. It's a secure display in that you're watching it, but no one else is seeing it with you. So if you have a work spreadsheet up in the middle of a coffee shop, you're not showing anyone who walks by behind you what all your numbers are. You still can see everyone coming by you because it's a spreadsheet floating in space in front of you. So you can interact with people, but it's private for you, which is different than a display on a laptop. It's more protected. If you were in like in my case, in an office in the fall of the year, late afternoon, the sun comes directly in the edge of the office and I can't see a thing on any of my screens. Put the headset on, I have perfect lighting. There's no glare coming across the screen, meaning I can't see anything. So I can read all of the text, basically. It all works.
So you're in a completely controlled environment at all times. Okay.
And in fact, you can affect the environment behind you. So you could be in your office seeing everything, or if you get that sun glare coming through the office, you can turn yourself into a completely artificial environment behind your screen. A beach scene late afternoon. You could even put the trees blowing around in the breeze in the late afternoon in Bora Bora with a crystal clear screen sitting in front of that. So, as focus.
It's interesting to hear you, and I agree with everything you said. It makes perfect sense, but it's interesting to hear it listed as a positive, whereas the solo experience or the singular experience and not being able to share it has been viewed sometimes as maybe a negative. But this is the flip side of it, that you're right. I can see whatever I want to see in there and nobody else can be seeing it. And it's not like they can, unless they rip it off my head, that they're really going to be able to see it. So,
well, and it's more that no one else inadvertently sees it, because if you need to show it to somebody, you can have an iPad sitting there and you can direct your view to the iPad as a second display, basically, and then they can see exactly what you're seeing, including and up to on the virtual screen, you can reach your hand out and point to things on the screen, and the mirrored view of what you're looking at on an iPad would show your hand reaching out and pointing to elements on the screen. You don't have to do that, but you can do that. So yes, it could be private, it's secure and isolated, or it could be shared in a targeted way.
Great point. Great point. Marty, what do you have next?
Next on my list, it's to me, it's interesting. Eric went for the video stuff, and I kind of assumed he would go for the visual thing because that's really his thing. So I stayed away from those as choices and went more for the social and the 3D immersive environment. And so next on my list, the second thing you should try after elephants is in space. And we've spoken about this before. It is a social environment that's set up as a app within Vision Pro that you can get, and you can create you are given your own little apartment, which has 8 chairs in it, and you can invite people in. And that's what they do quite a bit. They have a schedule of discussions. They have a schedule of book studies. They have a schedule of media reviews. And most recently, they even have a schedule of AA meetings. There is a regular Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that meets in space. So it's turned into a really nice social platform. People who come in as their persona. And so, you're talking to some floating heads, but it's a real-time experience. You can even play games in it. The rooms are set up with board games, so people will play board games, and those games are added and getting more complicated as the time goes on. But it is a social environment for people who want to have social engagement in the platform.
Okay, so now this is the first socialization pick for the three of you, or for the three of us, so the two of you. The idea that you're now, to sort of the opposite of what Eric said, now you're talking about interacting with people, which is a really interesting aspect of it. Okay. Eric, so what are you going to take us to next? He has some.
Wow. Well, there's so many overlaps kind of between the different categories. I think what I'm going to do is talk about the Mac Virtual Display. And I kind of talked about it before, but talk about it in the sense of, kind of two things. One, it is different now than it was earlier. So anyone who saw a demo before, say, about December 10th, 2024, or has Vision OS software before 2.2, will want to kind of re-look at the Vision again after that date. The Mac Virtual Display, when it first came out, was kind of blurry. Sort of if you focused on something carefully, it was there. People went back and got the vision checked again. It worked, but it wasn't really functional for lots of detail. That has been greatly improved to the point that I prefer the virtual display over my real displays, partly because I get more real estate, but I can work it. I can do video editing in it. I can do all my typing, all my text stuff. It's clear. I can read it. I can read it even if I virtually push the display further out away from me to be able to have a huge amount of space. I will give different default settings. There's like an ultra wide display, which is like having 3 screens curved in front of you. That is huge. And for some things, it's really good. But I find that you have to turn your head a lot. So if you're going to do that, putting yourself in a swivel chair so that you can keep your head consistent, but then just turn your body or swivel in the chair, looking at different parts of the screen, I find I get less neck strain. Otherwise, it's like sitting too close to the screen in an IMAX. But you don't have to use the ultra-wide display. You can use the slightly narrower display. Some people might find that useful. So yeah, it's good now.
As part of your campaign trying to get me to buy one of these things, you sent me a Final Cut timeline that was crazy. I mean, it made me want to go out, run right out and get one because of the ability to see the editing across the entire project and with amazing clarity. So
yeah, you could just keep zooming and zooming and zooming, and it was all there.
And to your point, you could I assume that you could turn your head and continue to see it at different points along the timeline, sort of the way you could if you had an ultra-wide monitor. And I'd say, okay, I want to look at this part of the timeline, or I want to look at that part of the timeline. Now it's all virtual, and there is no compromise on quality or zooming.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, you get an ultra wide display and, you need to have it positioned just right so that it's comfortable to work on, and sometimes people kind of put it on a stand and lift it up. Sometimes it's kind of over the physical structure of your desk and your workspace sometimes determines where it can go. If you have a virtual display, you can grab the display and you can tweak it up just a tiny bit or down just a tiny bit or push it out a little bit. The physical constraints of your space have nothing to do with the display. And it took me a while to kind of realize that because I'd be using a virtual display and then have a real display there and a phone and an iPad and so I tended to put the display up above everything so that I can kind of glance down and go back and forth. And what I realized is what I really wanted was a virtual display wrapping around directly in front of me. So I didn't have to look up or down or over to the side. I just had exactly where I would want it. And physically on my desk, it was always just slightly off the back edge of my desk in a spot I could never put a display. Or if I was sitting at a table with my MacBook, I put the display really just slightly higher than the keyboard on the MacBook, basically right over the top of the MacBook screen, but then pushed it out a little bit. But when you're looking at it, you're viewing it as if it's in front of your MacBook screen. So it's positioned perfectly ergonomically, yet and you can see everything, you can work on it. You can use your MacBook keyboard, but you have this display. And it doesn't matter what stuff is piled on your desk. You don't have to worry about the display bumping something when you go to rotate the screen one way or the other and knocking something off the edge of the desk, like, a pile of mail or something. You can push the screen further away. You can bring it up really close. You can stick it off to the side. It all works.
That's a big reason for me to start considering this, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. And what
Marty?
what Eric said in terms of the virtual display, users have been wanting the ultra wide display for months, and Apple wasn't releasing it. And it was cut, they were like, it's supposed to be in 2. Now it's in 2.1. No, it's not in 2.1. It came out with 2.2. And I think they held off because they wanted to get it right. And at the same time, improve the way in which virtual displays are shared in the headset, because it was kind of grainy. I might as well use my MacBook when it first came out or when it was just being tested. And it's gotten remarkably clear in being able to use it. So, yeah, it's a good pick, Eric.
Okay, Marty, you're next. What do you got?
Obviously Eric works. Because he keeps coming up with these work-based reasons of the top things that you want to do. I'm really trying to come up with some things that push what the environment can do. So I'm going to say there's an app that I really, that was rather meditative for me. That was kind of fun and really pushed the 3D environment of it. It is a meditative app. It's called Trip, TRIEP. And it is a fully immersive meditation experience. Scenes of you flying above the earth as the sun is rising and constantly and you can look in 360 and see the whole environment that you're surrounded in. Really, to me, it brings out the aspect of the device that no other device can bring out. So Trip would be my choice. And I would direct people to that as a meditation app or as just a relaxation app to kind of chill out without having to follow a plot, without having to do work. Just take 10 minutes and take a trip, I guess would be what you'd say.
So when you start talking about meditation, I think most people, at least I do, think about closing my eyes. And, not being distracted by visuals and focusing on what I'm supposed to be focusing on if I'm meditating, which that sounds contradictory, but you know what I mean. But yeah. Does this enhance the ability to get into the meditative state with visuals? Is that what you're saying?
It is a mindfulness kind of relaxation experience. I wouldn't say it's necessarily transcendental. Like you think of meditation in the typical way, but it is meant as and acts very, very well to put you in a relaxed state and to kind of sit in a space where you're in awe about what's going on around you. And so in that sense, you are being more attentive to what the world is around you that you would if you weren't in that state. Like our typical work state, there's a lot that goes by us that we just are aware of or pay attention to. This puts you in a place where you can just absorb everything that's around you. And that's a different kind of mental state and gives me a sense of relaxation. I think there are lots of meditative. In fact, Vision Pro has one of their own that's just a breathing kind of app that's more akin to the kinds of things that you have suggested, Chuck, around meditation, closing your eyes. In this case, you're looking at a flower and it's expanding and contracting as you breathe. So there's a little bit more of that focused meditation, and there are like very many apps. Strip fully utilizes the environment. It's not just a flat screen projection of a flower pulsing. It is a full environmental experience. So.
Eric, are you going back to work, or are you going to be entertaining?
All right.
It's okay if you want to go to work. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, no, it's like which end to go from. So I'm going to mention an app called Spatial Station that lets you kind of blip around the globe and then go to a particular spot and then look at immersive videos from a particular spot. For instance, you can say, I would like to look at the Eiffel Tower. And then you can look at a video that has somebody walking up to the Eiffel Tower through a a park view with a bunch of blooming flowers and the Eiffel Tower lit up at night in the background. That's not something I had really seen. Again, you're missing scent, so you can see the flowers, but you can't smell them. but it's the idea that you can pick an enormous number of places around the globe and say, let me see what it looks like. And it's other people putting their videos into an app that lets you go and look at what they saw at different times of the year. So, pick a national park and wonder, do you want to see that in the early spring? Do you want to see that in the summer? Do you want to see it at the fall? A lot of parks will put up a note about busiest times of the year, so you might want to avoid those. Then you can look and see, well, what does it look like in the busy time of the year? What does it look like if there's snow melt coming down? Does that make the waterfall better or worse? Or, what animals are visible? It's sort of a way to travel without having to make the trip before you make the actual trip. I found that I would want to visit a location 2 or 3 times or 2 years in a row to the same location, because the first time I would go and get used to it and kind of have a general idea of where I might want to go. And then I'd go back again and say, oh, yeah, okay, I want to see this place again, spend more time over here. It's a way of kind of previewing a location before you go, and then being able to better plan when you might want to go and what you might want to spend time seeing.
So to be clear, this is video taken or experiences created by people that are actually there and uploading them.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously that you have to ask the question of, are these spatial videos created with an iPhone or with a Vision Pro, or are they something a little more pedestrian?
It's kind of a whole range of devices. Some of the videos are really bad. Others are astoundingly good. But
depending on
you have a headset that can look at the whole range, make it as good as it can make it. And, your mileage might vary, but you can easily kind of consume that variety. It makes it look as good as you can make it look.
Got it. Okay, good. Spatial Station.
Yeah.
Have that right?
Yeah, it's an excellent app that Eric selected there. There are a few of these social media kinds of apps, and I've uploaded some pictures that I've taken in Turkey, some pictures that I've taken out west. The panoramic 3, shots that I shot on previous iPhones, the panoramas that I put in to the site. But Spatial Station is really pretty remarkable. And I think people in there want to see more spatial videos. So people are loading spatial videos because they want to get the full benefit of the headset. But it's pretty cool. You can pick different parts of the globe and go see places that maybe you visited or maybe you haven't visited, but you'd like to know more about, and see how the video is done in that area. So,
Marty, are you going to continue the non-work theme, or are you going to give us something that's...
I have a couple of work. Maybe we'll get to them, but it's just work apps that I do, and they don't necessarily have a 3D quality to them or spatial quality to them yet. I think that's one of the problems with some of the apps is they're just porting them over, and you can do the work inside. You mentioned Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro now does spatial video editing. DaVinci Resolve just came out with spatial video editing too. So it's nice to see apps, particularly the photography and the video stuff that Eric's so much into, are coming out with and support for spatial photography in the Vision Pro. I'm going to stick with the games. Beat Punch. Beat Punch is, if you're familiar with Meta, the big game on there is Beat Saber, where you have lightsabers on Meta that you are using to cut through blocks as they're flying in space to you. towards music that's playing in the background. Beat Punch, I don't know. They did just enough to avoid lawsuits, I think. They changed the name of the game, and they're not using sabers, but you visually, you look at your hands, and remember, when you're setting up your Vision Pro, you're scanning your hands, and some articles say there are 28 different points of reference on your hand that is scanned in for data. Well, what Beat Punch does is it puts like a mechanical hand over your hand, and you're actually using that like a Hulk smash as things come at you to punch. And even sitting in a chair, it can be a little bit of a workout and maybe elevate your mental stress a little bit. But it's a fun game. Eric, you've played it.
Yeah, and it's got nice buttons for the front of your hand and buttons at the back of your hand. The buttons at the moment don't seem to do a whole lot, but they look good.
And maybe they'll be connected to something eventually.
Plus.
Yeah.
Okay. Eric, game or work or something different?
I think I will pick Vimeo, which oddly enough I had soundly panned not that long ago, but it seemed to have worked really well recently. So I don't know if the upload compression got fixed or if it was the Final Cut Pro release that generated a video that's got better hints. I haven't had time to experiment with that. But it lets you upload a video. It does take a little bit of time. The upload goes pretty quickly, but then they go and kind of recompress everything. And that takes a while. So you don't want to plan on doing it last minute. Do it at least the day before you might want to use it. But it gives you a video URL you can then paste into different social media sites and then have video available that is actually immersive for the headset.
Okay. And
sharing immersive video is sometimes difficult.
And at this point, everybody should be familiar with Vimeo, not for just the Vision Pro, but just in general as a place where videos are hosted. So it's not like you're going to some place that is different. It's just now the experience is a little better if you have a Vision Pro and if you're looking at Vision Pro content.
Yeah, we had a bit of a video off a couple of weeks ago when we were trying to figure out what platform should we be using and trying to do spatial videos with. And Vimeo had come out talking about their spatial video. And I think I uploaded something, Dave Ginsburg, I think uploaded something, and Eric was ahead of the curve. And we ran into some problems with it. And then they did a revision, I think, of the app, or they did an update on the app. And it's now pretty good. It's now pretty good as a platform. So it's nice to see, Eric stuck with it and has some good experience with it.
And as far as I'm concerned, that just all points to the fact that these are still early days for this platform, as far not just for the development of the device and the platform itself, but also the support for the platform. And it's encouraging that you have people like Vimeo stepping up and saying, okay, we're going to support this. And, we might not get it right at the very first swing, but, it will get better. Everybody's learning right now.
Very much so.
The Macalope did a sort of a tongue-in-cheek article, I think this last week, that Vision Pro was dead. That was the article that came out about 3 weeks ago. And people were feeding off of that and promoting how the platform must obviously be dead. And I think it was people who just wanted to see it die. But then you look at things like Vimeo making this, impact in terms of it. You look at Final Cut Pro, you look at all the different kind of support things that have come out in the last couple of weeks for the Vision Pro. And it's like, no, it's not going anywhere. They wouldn't be working this hard to bring these kinds of qualities to the device if they didn't think if they didn't have a future plan for it.
And I think the Final Cut Pro development is as big a one as anything, because Apple just doesn't build things into Final Cut Pro just to, just because they can. That's a pretty, and that to me is a pretty significant advance, because now if I do shoot spatial video on my iPhone, or if and when I get a Vision Pro headset, that I use that to create it. Now I can actually trim out the things that maybe I didn't want there, or make it just a tighter video piece. So I think that's huge. I agree with you. I think that was Eric's. Was it? Did I have that right? Marty is about.
It was Eric.
It was Eric's? Okay, so Marty, it's back to
me. Let's face it. We all tell people that we buy it to do work on, but when it comes down to it, we just play around. And so, again, kind of sticking with the platform and what it can do, a relatively new app called OmniCards. It is OmniCards, a card game. And it creates a table that is in front of you. And Eric pointed this out when we talk about this app, that you can grab the edge of the table and you can raise it or lower it so it's the right height for what you want to do in terms of cards or in terms of gaming. And you can play solo against the machine, I guess, or more commonly, and what you see is you can invite people to come in and sit around the table with you and play a variety of card games. So again, taking more into the social aspect of it, the spatial aspect of it. People come in their personas, so that's what they see and that's how they interact. And it is a way to find folks, meet folks, play cards, get away from all that work that Eric's doing during the day.
Eric, do you feel the need to get away from work?
Oh no, I'm getting
away from Eric's work.
There you go. What do you have next, Eric?
If it's fun, it's not really work, right?
There you go. I subscribe to that notion. Yes.
All right. So the next thing I picked is definitely not a mature category. Think of it as a survey of what could be. And I think tools like Final Cut Pro coming out so that you can edit immersive video, that was a necessary step that didn't exist. But what I'm going to recommend is in the Apple TV app, there's a series of sports clips. Everyone who either tries out a Vision Pro or gets a Vision Pro should take an opportunity to watch the clips. There's clips from the 2023 MLS soccer highlights, where you get to see a bunch of pivotal scenes and a ball coming at the net, and in most, if not all of the cases, the camera positions you in a spot that you wouldn't normally easily be able to get to experience the action on the field in a way you normally couldn't. There's 4 minutes of the Super Bowl kind of actions coming on afterwards, behind the scenes, but visuals where you're right next to players as everything is happening, kind of going back and forth. Kind of like the immersive elephant video, where you can turn your head and you can see things happening and going by, watching things in front of you. It's a hint of what we should be able to get to soon. There's an NBA All-Star Weekend where you get to see, basketball action in a bunch of clips. Again, hints of what should be but isn't quite there yet. And definitely it's like an early look of how everyone maybe will be watching sports going forward, but not quite yet. Some of it, I think, is having everyone getting used to how to shoot the video, how to get the cameras positioned correctly, actually having hardware available. Some of it is just, timing and audience and having devices to watch it on. But it's a way of kind of getting a preview of the future now.
I'm sort of wondering if and when sports would figure into this conversation.
Yeah, I think the problem, I'd be happy with sloppy video right now. I think having cameras placed around a park, watching a game, and having somebody pushing the buttons to switch cameras where necessary. I think the problem, somebody pointed this out to me, is the bandwidth. In order to get that out and to get that into a streaming headset could be a limiting factor in that, whereas you have set up videos that are already mounted somewhere. That's a different kind of experience, which is what we currently have now with sports. Yeah, you can see, I watched MLB games through the MLB app on my headset. It was a different experience than watching it on a television with a flat screen, although I just had the flat screen and, the screen projected in the space in my living room. It was still kind of a different experience for me. I would love to see more live streamed video of events versus pre-recorded video of events. But I think, like Eric said, we're a little ways off on that.
Marty, I hadn't even thought about the bandwidth challenge. That's I've got to think about that, because at the end of the day, you're still only going to be sending out one stream, and that would be, whatever the director decides to send you, the producer decides to send you. But still, an Apple Vision Pro stream versus even a 4K stream is going to be quite a bit different. So
yeah,
it'll happen. So Marty, back to you.
I've got one more. Well, I have more than one more, but one more that I'll share is a game that I play. It's sort of a solitary game. So if you want to put the headset on, you want to go into that space. But it utilizes the 3D environment, the spatial environment really well, is a game called Puzzling Places. And what it is deconstructed images, large churches, mosques, all sorts of different parts where obviously somebody has gone to the trouble of shooting a lot of this to create what then is a 3D image. And what you're getting in this app, in this game, is you're like, okay, we're gonna build this church. You can look at kind of the static picture of it in a 2-dimension and not much more. But then you get a carousel of pieces that are 3D pieces. And you start to put these pieces together to actually build the 3D structure. It sounds a lot easier than it is. But it's easy enough that I didn't give up on it. So like the first puzzle is like 100 pieces, and it's like, okay, I can do this. And I did it, took a couple of sittings, maybe 3 sittings for me to do it. And I'm like, oh, I love this. This is going to be great. And then I got to the second puzzle, which was like 240 pieces. And, then it becomes a time suck. And it's a little tougher. And I did manage to finish that and felt a sense of accomplishment and agency from doing that. And then the next one is like 400 pieces. And I'm like, I don't know. But people can get hooked. You can get hooked into this. But the thing is, again, you're looking at a piece as a 3-dimensional piece and trying to figure out where it fits within this larger object that you're creating. So it really uses the spatial spatial aspect of the platform, which is why it made my list.
Well, it sounds like Marty's wrapping up his list. Eric, do you have one last one for us?
The Photos app.
Oh.
And I'm picking that because there are more people out there that do not have a Vision Pro than do have a Vision Pro. But many of those people have an iPhone. And you can use your iPhone to generate content whether or not you have an Apple Vision Pro. And assuming this is a peek at what will be happening moving forward, eventually many, many, many more people will have an Apple Vision OS class device and be able to consume the media. You just have to have had it. Using your phone to take pictures of pets, using your phone to take pictures of people, kids events, visiting relatives that you don't see very often, or having them take pictures and send them to you, shared albums, that kind of thing, and collecting that information. And the newest phones being able to do spatial video, spatial stills, and in some case being able to record spatial video with spatial audio, so that because you can get depth of the picture scene, but then get an audio representation of the scene as well. So somebody that is to the left or right of you, you can, see that they're to the left or right or further in the back or right next to you, but you can hear it as well. You might not be able to smell, but you can hear, and, that add that sense in as well as to the vision. And even older pictures, or people that have like a digital SLR and take a bunch of pictures, bring the picture into the Photos app, and you can convert still 2D images into 3D images, and it does a remarkably good job of giving representation of depth. And if you take some old videos that you have and then combine it with some stills that have been converted to spatial video, imagine, filming a picture of a puppy bouncing across the screen, and then fading into a still picture of the puppy doing something cute that is spatial, that has dimension to it, so you can kind of see as if you're standing right there. And, imagine pushing yourself forward in time, 8 years, 10 years, sometimes having that extra spatial depth is an extra level of emotion with a picture or an event or a birthday party or a relative telling a story than just 2D video. But you can do it now, whether or not you have an Apple Vision Pro, because you might have a Vision OS device in the future.
I like that, because that means that, if I have a special event coming up in my life, like a once in a lifetime kind of special event, maybe a graduation or a wedding or something like that, I could capture it that way, and recognizing the fact that maybe I may not do the best job, but at least I will have that option for the future. So that's a very insightful pick. I like it.
Yeah, when Eric said photos, I thought he was going to go directly to the piece at the end that he went to. My experience with photos on the Vision Pro is I have all my photos connected through Photos, and there's one picture of me when I am, 8 years old, and I'm sitting on the front stoop of my bungalow in Chicago. My dad's there, and my brother and sister are there, and it's a black and white shot. And it in itself has meaning, but in Vision Pro, there are a couple of apps that will allow you to convert photos to spatial views of the photo. And I tried that with this particular picture on a couple of apps. Photos, which is the Apple product, apparently they know the secret sauce of how to make things work with Vision Pro and the spatial part of it, because it really, out of all the third-party apps that are out there that claim to do that, I think the Photos app within Vision Pro does the best job of it. And when it's done right, it is spooky. It hits you right in the middle of the chest. Like, wow, that's a sense that I get that my dad's there, my brother and sister are there, and that's me back then. So that you lose in just the two-dimensional shots.
I'm always a little bit afraid of doing these Vision ProFocus shows, because every time you guys inch me just a little bit closer to the purchase. Not everything here on this list would be for me, but a fair amount of it is, and I kind of feel like that's probably the way it is for most folks. And there's more coming. It's quite the developing ecosystem. So I'll throw this out to everyone out there that is going to listen to this however they listen to it, or watch it however they will watch it, that contact me at MacVoices, contact Eric and Marty. Where did that come from? Eric and Marty at Vision Profiles. Let us know what you'd like to hear in-depth conversations about when it comes to the Vision Pro. because this is so new that sometimes we're not even sure what questions to ask or what you should be hearing and what you want to hear. Gentlemen, thank you. This nice little list, I must say. It's going to. I want to go and just read about some of these things and see how they apply to me. You can find me.
Chuck, you should just buy one. You should just buy one and get all the self-doubt over with.
Except the self-doubt that comes with the credit card bill, but that's another discussion too. You can find me at MacVoices.com. Gentlemen, what is the current URL for Vision Profiles?
Best place to find us is we have our own link on the podtalk.net, which is where I've kind of put all of the podcasts that I'm working on. And that's the best way to kind of connect with us through that. You can also get a hold of us at visionprofilespodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks so much. We'll be back with another Vision ProFocus sometime in the near future. Meanwhile, check out MacVoices. Definitely check out Vision Profiles if this has piqued your interest. Until then, thanks for watching.